Well, today we go back and we get our friend Jeff Benzinger. I said it correctly, I think.
You
Benzinger.
you
Everybody
did.
puts an N in there, but there is no N in there. It's
Yeah,
Benzinger.
that drives me crazy.
And yeah, it should. Just think about my last name, Romeo.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah, but think about the abuse you get for the last
Oh,
name
yeah.
Romeo as a kid.
Oh, yeah. You have to
But
ask where Juliet is, right?
yes, of course. I did not marry a Juliet. I married a Cynthia.
Okay.
Okay, so History Hunters is where to find Jeff, and this is one of the greatest, one of the ones that I came upon in the very beginning when I started with watching YouTube on a regular basis. I actually stumbled upon Jeff. I had no idea. I just watched this one video, and I saw the fascination that you had with the very first one. I can't remember, but it was a grave site of a very important person, and so important I can't recall right now, but it really left a mark on me. So I kept on tuning in. I subscribed, and there we go. History Hunters, Jeff Benziger. And
Yes.
here we go. In the last one, the one that I wrote, that I watched, it was James Dean, because of course I'm an actor, and of course I'm drawn to such things. His that's the last one that I watched, and
Okay.
that was a fascinating one, Jeff. Tell us about, first of all, let's go through, how did you start this? What happened to lead you in this direction?
You mean what started the channel?
Yeah, basically,
Uh,
why this subject matter? Why?
well, I've always been interested in history, and I was at the local bookstore and I picked up one of the Arcadia books, kind of the local history books. You may see them. They all have the sepia tone covers. And I was flipping through one that had a picture that had the first location of the first and last robbery that come on, Charles Bowles, who was Black Bart, committed his robbery outside of Copperopolis, and it's just a short drive from where I am. So I said, Sarah, let's go and try to find this rock because I heard that there was a plaque on it. Actually, it's on private property. So we found the rock. We had to trespass to go there. And then I went back to the museum in San Andreas, and my shoes were all covered in mud. And I asked the guy there. I said, "How do you find the location for where Black Bart committed his robberies?" He said, "Well, you can't go on it. You can't go there because it's on private property." I said, "Well, look down at my shoes because I just went there." And at that moment, I said, "You know what? I need to do a YouTube channel because this would be a great idea." If you go on YouTube, there's a lot of people that visit graveyards, but I want to do more of history. And when I go into a cemetery, I try to pull the history out of the cemetery, so to speak, because there's so many fascinating stories in cemetery. And I go by the motto, everybody has a story. Now, are we going to know about the story? Probably not, not unless it's been documented in some way. So I try to do my research before I go anywhere. I try to find out all I can about the area and about the people. We just got back from Kingman, Arizona, where there's some really fascinating Route 66 type history, but also some Clark Gable history because he and Carol Lombard drove all the way from Los Angeles in 1939 to get married in Kingman, Arizona at this church. And I can't figure out why they drove so far to get married, but they did that. And then Andy Devine, the character actor, the Western character actor, grew up in Kingman. So I photographed the hotel that his dad operated, and we just had a great time, just doing our own thing, but also recording history. And it helps pay for the trip, so to speak.
Yeah,
So
these
that's
trips
kind of
become
how it started.
expensive. They have to become expensive after a while,
Oh
no?
yeah, every time you book a hotel, it's 150, 200 bucks a night. So
Yeah, travel is really
yeah,
pricey.
yeah.
You and when I watch, I often say, I wonder if he just drove for the day or is he there for a little while. When I see California, I think automatically, although California is a big state, I think automatically you drove back and forth. But most of all, you stay at the hotel, the nearby hotel. Is that how you usually do it?
Yeah, or we do an Airbnb. But I
Okay.
try to hit like all the places I can in one trip. So a lot of people I'll publish a video and then they'll later say, well, why didn't you go? You missed this. You did that. You didn't go here. You didn't go there. It's like, look,
You
I've
can't
shot
please
like
everybody.
5 or 6 videos here. So cut me a break here.
And that's the thing. Everybody's going to have something to say.
Oh,
They
oh my
always
gosh.
have. You could do the greatest work. You'll have the naysayers down there. It's just the way things go. And
You
I'm used to it. I'm sure you're used to it.
you have
It's
to have
part
thick
of the whole
skin, I
thing.
say. Thick
Yes, you
skin.
do. Yes, you
Yeah.
do. Well, I'll pick and choose my favorites
Okay.
recently because
Okay.
the one I was going to say at the top of the program, 1955, James Dean, that fateful drive that he took in his Porsche. Tell us about that one because that really grabbed me. That was a great one.
Well, the video that you saw was me visiting the Tulare Public Cemetery. And the man who was responsible for the death of James Dean is buried there. I didn't actually get to go to the James Dean crash site this time, but I wanted to talk about Donald Turnipseed. He was a 23-year-old college kid. He was going to school on the coast and he was going back home into the Central Valley of California, Tulare. And everybody, it really ticked me off because when I published this video, they said, well, James Dean was speeding. There's no proof that James Dean was speeding at the time of the wreck. He was going directly into the sun. He had a silver car, so he kind of blended in with the road. And this kid, Donald Turnipseed, had to make a left. He had to yield to oncoming traffic, and he had to make a left to go on the route that he wanted to take. Well, he cut right in front of James Dean at the last second. James Dean had no chance to respond to it,
Mhm.
no way to avert the crash, and took his life. A lot of people don't know that he had a passenger in his car, Rolf Weatherick, who was his mechanic, and he survived, but he was messed up for a long time. Donald Turnipseed goes about his ways, and he was led a very private life because everybody wanted to interview him and talk about the crash, and he gave one interview, and that was to the local newspaper that night. So we don't know a lot about Donald Turnipseed other than the fact that he went on and he had an electrical business with his dad, and he led a successful life. But I'm sure he was very bothered by the fact that he was responsible for taking the life of James Dean.
I saw the newspaper
Yeah.
printing, driver takes movie star's life, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So this guy had this stigma attached his entire, I mean, it had to affect him
Yeah.
drastically, yes?
Now, James Dean did get a traffic ticket on Highway 99 about hour and a half, 2 hours before the crash, but it was only going 65 into 55. I mean, come
Hmm.
on. I mean, today you wouldn't even get cited for that.
Hmm. And well, the thing was, they actually advised him. I think, you tell me if I have the story right, you know better than I. They advised him that he shouldn't drive this Porsche. It was more like a racing car. It wasn't really geared for highway driving, but yet
Yeah.
he discarded that advice and he took off. And is that the way it went?
Yeah. The story is that Rolf Weatherick said, hey, James Dean did not want to drive it. He wanted to put it on the trailer. And so there was a vehicle behind him that was intending to take the car back to Los Angeles. James Dean didn't want to drive it, but Rolf said, hey, why don't we drive it and kind of work it out, And darn, if that had actually happened, James Dean would probably be an old
So it was
man
a bad
today.
influence. It was the
Yeah.
passenger's fault
Yeah. Well,
in
I'm
a
sure he
certain
took some
sense.
survivor guilt for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And Dean made three movies. Here's a guy who is an icon. Three films. He did other work, but TV work.
Right.
He did Giant, East of Eden, and Rebel Without a Cause. And we still talk about him. 2025, he comes up. I hear it in acting
Yeah.
circles. They talk about James Dean.
Right. But yeah, as the generations go by, I'm finding, fewer and fewer people know who these
I
celebrities
guess.
are. It's very sad because some of these museums, some of these towns where these celebrities grew up, they have museums and then they close for lack of interest.
No.
It's like the Bonanza, the Ponderosa attraction over in Lake Tahoe closed. It started to lose its appeal to a lot of people. So it's like all the old people are watching Bonanza, but the newer people aren't because it's just really corny if you think about it.
Bonanza ran from 1959 through 72, I think. That's a 13-year run. That's pretty
Yeah, I
darn.
think 73. Yeah,
73? Okay.
yeah,
And Dan Blogger passed away, and
it
that
took
was the
his
end of that
death.
series. And you had a video on that one too.
Right,
And that one was a good one. I never missed NBC Bonanza. You and I are about the same age. I
right,
never
right,
I Sunday night Bonanza. That was Bonanza time.
right.
No doubt about it. And you visited L.A. shortly after those fires. How did that turn out?
Yeah, well, I had scheduled this trip because the Hollywood show was taking place, I think it was January 10th and 11th. Well, guess what? I mean, that Tuesday prior to this Friday event, all hell breaks loose in Los Angeles. And I really didn't think I was going to go, even though I'd booked a hotel and bought tickets to the show. And so the night before, I was trying to decide, should I go or not? Is this going to be a mistake heading down there? And when I watched the Hollywood Hills fire get put out by the helicopters very quickly, I thought, well, it's not that close to Burbank, so I'm just going to go ahead and risk it. And, if I have to turn around, I'll turn around. But it was great because I got to go. Horrible that what happened down there. Just being down there, knowing that people were just losing their houses left and right, and I'm out there having fun. It's just weird paradox in life, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
just as we speak, people are dying, right?
yeah.
But I decided to go. I went to some cemeteries. I got two cemetery visits coming up, or videos coming up that I've shot while I was down there, and they're going to be good ones. Nobody was there either. So the reason they had shut some of the cemeteries down is the winds were so horrendous that the trees were blown over, and they had to bring out the crews to cut the trees out of the roads through the cemeteries. So luckily, I got to do that. I also, you probably saw the video that I did on the show itself, where I was talking to some of the old
Yeah.
celebrities, and that was quite fun because I'd never thought I'd ever get to interview Donna Mills or talk to Bruce Dern or talk to the kid from Christmas Story, but yet they're all there. They're all people, and they're trying to make money selling their autographs.
Well,
What else do they do down
yeah,
there?
Bruce Stern is quite a character.
Yeah,
Always loved his work, and he's now he's about 85 or something like that. But
yeah, he's up
he's
there.
always fantastic. And
Yeah.
how was Donna Mills? Nice person.
She's very friendly, very beautiful. And I would say she does not look her age. She's in her 70s
She's
and
up
she
there.
looks just like she walked off the show in Knots Landing. So
Yeah, she maintained herself very,
the
very.
one that everybody I feel sorry for because it was like plastic surgery gone wrong was Joan Van Ark from the
Uh,
same show. Um,
what they
yeah.
do to for some reason they insist on doing this to themselves. And every time I see it, it's almost a different person.
Oh, Kim Novak's another one.
Oh, Kim Novak. As I watched Vertigo about 3 weeks ago, the beautiful Kim Novak in
Yeah.
1957
Yeah.
just aged gracefully, folks.
Yes.
Just aged gracefully. Father
Yeah.
Time's going to take its toll. There's nothing you can do
Oh,
about it.
yeah, we all know that, right?
Oh, and I found out all too. I used to have dark hair, Greg. I mean, Jeff. Here's the thing: Marie McDonald, kidnapping, 1957. I wasn't born yet, but history tells me. I vaguely remember that situation. I watched that video. I was mesmerized by that one. Tell us about that one.
Well, yeah, Marie McDonald, she was a wannabe Marilyn Monroe type, never quite got there, but she found out that she was just a neurotic person. She found out that if she created a lot of drama in the media, that people paid attention to her. So she was going through a divorce, on again, off again with this Harry Carl, who was a shoe manufacturing magnate. He was quite wealthy. She hooked up with a lot of guys, I think, probably for money, and to her detriment. So it was like January 3rd, I believe, 1957. She disappears from her house. The baby's left behind. There's a couple of housekeepers that live there, a chauffeur. So the baby's not alone. But 23 hours later, the police get these information that, hey, Marie's been kidnapped, because she shows up like an hour away in Palm Springs on the highway. at night. A trucker sees her, headlights hit her, and goes, "Oh my gosh, there's a blonde lady right there, crawling up out of the side of the canyon there." And so when the police talked to her, they just suspected that things weren't adding up. For one thing, she says the men broke into her house with a shotgun, and that they took their time cutting letters out of magazines to fashion a ransom note, which they stuck in the mailbox as if how you can even find it in the mailbox. Um, and just her stories didn't add up. So when they did a search of the house, they found this book that was basically, forget the name of the book, but it was simulated a focused on an actress who faked her own kidnapping to get attention. And they started thinking, is
A little
this
too
did
close
this
to home.
really happen? So they had a grand jury inquest. Bottom line is nobody knows today. She was never charged with reporting a false crime. Uh, Kidnappers were never found. Harry Carl said, "My wife wasn't well, so I don't believe her." She actually accused him of committing this kidnapping, so he takes a polygraph test, passes. She's asked to take a polygraph test, and she refuses. So you be the judge of what actually took place. So this happened at 57. She did have a couple of movies out after that. I think you probably remember The Geisha Boy with Jerry
Sure.
Lewis.
Oh yeah.
She was kind of the sex pot in that one. And then in 1965, she was so heavily medicated she overdosed and she died in her house. And then I think it was just a couple of weeks later, her husband commits suicide by taking Seconal is what he took. So strange. I mean, it's so sad that these people get famous and then they just can't handle life.
Some of these, people will say this is morbid curiosity. Why are you so enamored with these stories? But I find it fascinating, and death is part of life. And
Right.
and we're not celebrating it. We're just kind of recording
Well,
it so people can understand it. Because you
how
mentioned people don't remember anymore.
how do you talk about history if you don't talk about dead
That's
people,
right.
right? Every historical, we all die, right?
That's
You and
right.
I are gonna die.
Yeah,
So,
I hate to say that, but yeah, you're right. You
it's
don't have to bring
reality.
it up, but you're right about that. But,
We
but
try to put it off as long as possible,
right,
right?
right. Try not to think about it. But McDonald, she was something because she was quite the character. It's not surprising when they're so off their rocker that they end up in a bad situation at the end. And
Yeah,
it's very tragic that the husband ended up the same way. Very
yeah.
tragic on that one. Here's one for you that was out of the box, I thought. It was very interesting that you made a special trip for Lolly Vegas, I believe his name is, from Redbone, Come and Get Your Love, which I listened
Right,
to in 1973.
right,
I
right.
couldn't get enough of that song. Why that guy that's kind of obscure? Why that guy? What's the fascination?
Well, to be honest, I mean, he was on my way to Los Angeles,
Oh, there
and
you go. There you go.
but but
You didn't have to tell me. Go
but
ahead.
no, seriously, I I've been planning to visit his grave anyway
Oh,
because I
okay.
I love that song, and I think it's fascinating that he was like the first African or American Indian rock band to become successful, and he was from basically our backyard. So I thought, hey, I'm going to go by there and tell his story, and I've had a lot of response to it. I
It's
mean,
a good
people
one.
people love that song.
No,
It's so iconic.
the
They're
song
playing
now they use for commercials.
Yeah, they played it in Guardians of the Galaxy, which kind of brought up the popularity of that song way back. So, yeah,
And the fact that that was the first, I wasn't aware of that. That was the first Native American based band. Were they
hmm
all Native American in that band?
well, his brother was Pat. I'm
Okay.
not sure about the other two, but possibly. But they always had the American Indian theme, the dancers and things like that incorporated with their performances. So he just seemed like a really cool guy. I'm sorry that he died so young. You know,
And you got to
Cancer
chase
took him
after
out.
the cool. Yeah, you got to chase after the interesting personalities,
Right, right,
the cool people. Some
right.
people were very impactful, but yet very dull. You seem to choose the ones that have some cachet. and they actually are very interesting to talk about. And here's another one: the duel between Broderick and Terry. I believe that was, is that maybe 1859? I think it was. I think I have that date right. That
I,
was
I
fascinating. I wasn't aware of that. That was a good one I watched recently.
yes. Well, yeah. Did you watch the connecting video to that in Lathrop?
I don't think so. I missed that.
Okay. Because the guy who shot and killed Senator Broderick, U.S. Senator from California,
Right.
he ends up getting killed himself. He was such a hothead. So he confronts, it's so bizarre. You couldn't even make a movie where it's believable based on reality. If you did, people would go, this has never happened. Well, it did happen. He confronts this. It's so convoluted. I don't have time to talk about it. But basically, David Broderick was against slavery. David Terry was an implant from California, from Texas. Of course, he believed in slavery. He was a hothead. He was the Chief Justice of the California State Supreme Court. And they had a falling out. They were insulting each other. So, like gentlemen used to do back then, they decided to settle it with a duel. And Senator Broderick was killed. Actually, he was shot, mortally wounded, and then taken to San Francisco, where he died, I believe that later that day. But fast forward, Broderick marries this nut job called Sarah Althea Hill, and she's affiliated with another U.S. Senator, William Sharon, who's a big Comstock lode owner up in Virginia City. They have a falling out, so he sues Senator Sharon because he's worth millions and millions of dollars, and she wants a cut of it. Well, it went through the courts. They ruled against her, saying they were never married. She claims they were. David Terry meets up with a justice that ruled against him at this little tiny railroad station in the Central Valley of California. It's named Lathrop, and he charges at the justice, and his bodyguard takes a shot, hits him in the chest, and kills him on the spot. You just can't make this stuff up. But David Terry, I think, was responsible for his own death. Just that's the way he lived his life.
On the edge.
He was confronted in one time in court. He didn't like what was being done, and he threatened to cut the ear off of the court guard in court, and so he was in prison for that, like a couple of months. And then his wife also tried to attack the judge. So we're talking about some volatile people, you know?
The way they settled things those days, you know?
Yeah, I mean, incredible. And it all happened in these little dusty towns in California, you know?
Yeah, and you correlated the duel between Aaron Burr and the other, and
Right.
and you kind of had that kind of correlation there.
Yeah.
That was interesting too. Yeah, we'll go out there 10 paces, turn and fire, and that's the way, and the best man wins. That's the way they did things sometimes.
Well, and Terry was familiar with his gun and Broderick wasn't. So it wasn't
Mm.
really a fair fight, you know? But
Ay, ay, ay.
somebody's got to come out a loser on that one.
And here's one that was tremendous, tremendous. I just watched this one about 15 minutes ago, to be honest with you, maybe a half hour ago. Helen Keller. I don't know how I missed this one, and my wife loves this whole story. She was always very fascinated by Helen Keller. That must have been one of your most fascinating stories that to do. That was a fascinating one, wasn't it?
I was visiting my dad, and I had learned that Helen Keller's birthplace was right there. She lived there until she was about 9 years old. But here's a little girl who couldn't speak, she couldn't hear, she couldn't communicate with the outside world. Her parents were just exasperated. What do we do with her? And they read about this woman, Anne Sullivan, who had worked with others, deaf mute children like her, and it was a chore getting Helen under control, because basically she could run through the house tearing it up, and they just let her do it because it's easier than trying to quell this little wild child. So they shipped her off, and I'm surprised that so many people don't know about Helen Keller. Even after the movie that came out in I think '62 with
Hmm.
oh
And Bancroft,
yeah, and
Patty Duke.
Patty Duke played her, and so she became this really. I mean, you think about Uh, we are able to communicate because we hear and we can speak and we can hear our voices.
Hmm.
Well, she would actually have this system where she would place her, I think it was like this, so she could feel the vibration here, and she could also feel the lips, and she could determine what you were saying. Now, it seems a little intrusive to have somebody with their hands all spread all over your face, but that's how she even did that to President Eisenhower. I was kind of surprised to see a picture of that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, she was inspiring because most people would just want to just, you know, roll up in a blanket and call it a day, you know.
I have to tell you, the movie, I never really dug the movie for whatever reason. I thought I
Yeah.
didn't care for Patty Duke's portrayal. Anne
Yeah.
Bancroft I thought was fabulous, maybe a little over the top, but I didn't really care for something about it was a little overdone. But that's how I learned about that whole situation. Otherwise, that's how, but I think I saw that film maybe 1968 or 69.
All right.
It was a groundbreaking film in a certain sense.
Well, it was also black and white. I mean,
Yes,
it's harder to watch black and white, I think. But
I like the black and white.
do you? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm partial to the black and white sometimes. I feel very relaxed when I watch those black and
Yeah.
white films. But that whole it's just incredible with the limited resources they had that they were
Yeah.
able to do what they did with her. And it wasn't until Helen actually listened to her teacher that things started to turn around, right?
Yeah. Right. No, it took years of working with her, and they became lifelong friends. In fact, they're buried together at a crypt there in Washington, D.C. So, yeah, that's just tough to think about, just growing up like that. I often ask myself if I had the choice between losing my hearing or my sight,
Mm,
which would I lose? And I think sight's more important to me. I hate
yeah,
to lose my hearing, but yeah, it's we take our blessings for granted, I think.
no doubt.
Just hearing
And
is,
hearing leads to loss of hearing leads to dementia sometimes too. That's
yeah,
actually there's a
yeah.
correlation between the two.
Hmm.
Well, here's one for you. Maybe your favorite president because you got to meet him maybe two or three or four times. You tell me. Jimmy Carter, who just passed, what did he reach 100 or was he 99? I think he was very close to 100, if not.
He hit 100 in October.
He did.
So
Okay.
yeah, he did.
And he was
Um,
supposed to be on death's door about 100 times, but
oh
he did
yeah, he
not
was in the
making it.
hospice for years. But
And made it
when I
to
watched the funeral, Rosalind's funeral, I couldn't believe how that they let him out in public like that. He looked like he was already dead.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, not to be irreverent, but I mean,
yeah.
so yeah, I don't, I wouldn't say he's my favorite president. I think Reagan. I also shook hands with Reagan at one time, but I met Jimmy Carter. He came here to the Central Valley of California. It was a Fourth of July rally. It was in 1980, and I got to shake his hand. I also saw him at a motorcade. I went to his inauguration. I was close enough to where I could see when he smiled. And that's saying something because if you've ever been to a presidential inauguration, there's seems like millions of people there, but to be close enough, basically alongside of the media stand, that I could see him when he smiled. So it was a memorable moment for me. I was only 15 years old to see a president inaugurated, and then I saw him. I think the last time I saw him was at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library dedication. I think that was in 1991. But he was stood there with the five presidents at one time. It was just a surreal moment. How many times do you get to look up and see five presidents of the United States standing on a
That's a pretty
podium?
good afternoon.
Yeah,
And
historic moment.
you notice how you remember strange things. I remember from that video, you said, I'm quoting you, not verbatim, but close. He had the softest hands I've ever felt in my life, and someone else in your family said the same thing.
Yeah, my grandfather. So to get into this town hall meeting there in Merced in 1980, you had to have a ticket, and it was basically you just put your name in. If your name gets drawn, you get a ticket. So I went in. My girlfriend at the time went in, and my grandmother. Well, my grandfather was outside, but he was along the ropes, so he got to shake Carter's hand on the way in. And so later, when I was sharing with him, I said, Man, Carter had the softest palm of his hand I've ever felt. He says, I noticed that too, Jeff. Hey,
It
and I
was,
thought of all people who should have calluses on his hand would be a peanut farmer, right?
I was just going to say that the guy's doing manual labor there, and he has those soft hands.
Well, maybe he wasn't.
Maybe he was just giving orders. You do it. I'll stay right here and keep my hands
Right.
soft. But
Yeah.
okay, here's one for you. Muscle Shoals, the wonderful studio that everybody, all the big names have been to. What
Right.
prompted that visit?
Well, again, it was when I visited my dad. See how I work. If I'm going to go visit someplace,
I know
I
you
try to
sneak
find
in
all the
the.
places I can hit. And Muscle Shoals, I'd heard, you listen to one of my favorite bands of all time, Leonard Skinner. They talk about Muscle Shoals, and I'd hear that all the time in what's the song?
Oh,
Uh,
Freebird.
Freebird. You hear no, Sweet Home Alabama.
Oh, okay,
Sweet
yeah.
Home Alabama talks about Muscle Shoals. They got the Swampers.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, and what's the Swampers? Well, I found out the Swampers were this group of four local musicians. What do they call them? Uh,
Session musician.
yeah. So they had their own studio there in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. I thought, where the hell is this place?
Hmm.
It's this little building on the side of the road. In fact, we passed by it the first time we went through there, and I went, that was it. Oh my gosh.
It's a
It's
little
just this
shack.
tiny, gray building. I think at one time it was a coffin manufacturing in the showroom, but they've restored it the way that it used to be back when Rolling Stones was there for like 3 days. Uh, Linda Ronstadt was there. Uh, just a lot of hits. Bob Seger and Silver Bullet Band in there. Paul Simon recorded Kodachrome inside this building, and you're standing there. I finally got inside there because they take us to the basement first, and they take us up, and I said, where's all this music recorded? And they said, you're standing in the room. I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. And I thought, man, the rock and roll history in that room it was just blew me away. And
Oh,
then they tell me about this piano there. They said, oh, this is the piano that they played Freebird on, the intro to Freebird. I was like, are you kidding me? And the old time rock and roll Bob Seger, the da 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 da
yeah,
da,
right
that
there.
intro, that piano was there. I went, are you kidding me? It
And you
just
had and
blew
you
me
had that
away.
old rickety couch there, probably the original.
Oh, yeah.
It looked like
And
it was beaten up for
it
like the
felt,
original.
yeah, it felt like everybody slept on it. It was pretty bad.
I mean, so much history, and you wouldn't think an out of the way place like that would
No,
draw all these big
no.
names, but that's was the charm of it, I guess, right? Did you feel
Well,
the aura in the room?
I
Feel the
didn't.
ghosts?
No, I
No?
didn't. But the rhythm musicians is the reason that they all went there. They were highly respected, and I think a lot of the LA people like to get out of Los Angeles and go where it's quiet, where they could just. Even the Rolling Stones made no announcement that they were going to be there. They stayed at, I think, the local Holiday Inn, and they would shuttle back and forth, but nobody knew they were there. But yeah, today it's, and then there's another recording studio, the Fame Recording Studio, which I didn't get to go to. I'd like to see that someday, but that's another studio there in the same town, Sheffield, Alabama. It's right there, 5 minutes down the road. It's where they did a lot of other recordings. So, yeah, a lot of history there in that little town.
You know what I like when you do, you put the old historic picture and
Yeah.
you kind of put it right alongside what you're filming on that day, and just to see how it was and how it is, that's a beautiful thing right there.
Yeah, I love it when I can collect enough pictures where I can stand exactly where the photographer stood. Like,
Yeah.
I think he did one with the Muscle Shoals where I stood in front, and then I kind of brought in the album cover, Cher's album cover, where she had posed out there, and then he had Ronnie Van Zant from Leonard Skinner out there sitting on the sidewalk that I just walked on. It's incredible. Yeah, people love the fade in and out thing
Yeah. Yeah. And
when you can do it.
you have to be a special personality. You obviously are there's something about the curiosity factor that you have to have. That's what I think sometimes the young people that you mentioned that aren't aware of these things, they're not very curious. You know, if it didn't happen in their lifetime, they don't care
Yeah.
about these things. But I would hope that young people go to history hunters, oldsters too. You know, we all want to go to history hunters, but how about these young people make a commitment and get a history lesson from my friend Jeff and go watch some of these videos. You learn a great deal. I'll tell you that. Oh, well, I've been selfish. I've been mentioning some of my favorites. Why not tell me some of yours that stand out?
Oh, I think the one in Kingman's got to be one that I'm going to enjoy. But I think I went to Alabama Hills. It's this place in Lone Pine, California. It's on the eastern Sierra Nevada. It's kind of out of the way. You have to travel. It's out in the desert, basically, where just about every Western you can think of was shot out there. Just about every Western actor has been out there.
Hmm.
That one I really enjoyed because I did also lined up some scenes, and like this actor stood by this boulder. I don't know if you remember that one, but I found they made this little concrete watering hole out in the,
I saw that one.
yeah,
Yes.
where Gene Autry was standing for the um, Mule Train was the movie back in the 40s. And we found that, and I stood exactly where he stood and kind of played around with fading it in and out. So I really like that one. I I don't know. It's really weird when you make a video, you think, oh, people are going to really like this one, and then they don't,
I know.
or
I
vice versa.
never
Like
tell.
you will put like the Helen Keller thing. I didn't think anybody was going to watch it, and then that thing just like blew up. Like,
Really?
what? You people didn't know about Helen Keller? I mean, it's like a
No,
great
it's
awakening here.
Helen Keller. Who was that? I had no idea. That's exactly what happens sometimes. You
Yeah,
have no idea. You have no idea. The YouTube thing is very strange because
it
you never
is.
know what's going to go gangbusters, and the other one's going to fall apart. You have no idea. Are you obsessed with the fact, with your subscriber total and all these things? Do you think about it all the time? Is it foremost on your mind?
Not so much anymore because I realize, we had talked before this show that, yeah, you got 153,000 subscribers, but how many actually going to watch your video?
Hmm.
I'm more of a kind of guy where if I subscribe, I'm going to watch the videos. And so I'm puzzled by the fact that 153,000 people aren't watching my videos when they come out, at least within the first month or so. And if I get 10,000 the first day and 20,000 by the end of the week, I'm doing pretty good.
Hmm.
Now, a lot of people might be looking at that going, "Oh, well, don't look a gift horse in the mouth because
Sure.
that's a lot." In the YouTube world, I guess it might be, but then I start comparing myself to other people who do what I do. There's a guy that's called Sidetrack Adventures. He kind of ticks me off.
Does he copy from you?
No, he doesn't copy me, but he's basically doing the same thing, and he's getting uh,
And he's
vastly
probably
more views
what
than I am. So
does he have a good personality?
he's average,
Yeah.
but he's doing it, uh, I think full time because he
Oh.
can't be pumping out the videos and have a day job like I do.
So
And
he's doing how many per week would you say?
I at least three or four,
That's quite a bit.
and I can't do that.
That's constant.
Um,
How many do you do now?
I do one a week.
Okay.
Sometimes twice a week, but I want my videos to be quality. Anybody can throw out a video that's just slapped together and it looks like crap, not edited well. And people always compliment me, "Oh, your videos are very well edited." It's like, well, I hope so because I spend hours and hours and hours a week. Even after I get off from work, I'll come home and
You work
do
on it.
the editing. And it gets like towards the end of the week where I'm ready to release this thing. I'm sick of the video.
Yeah,
And I know
because
for thousands of people, it's all going to be new for them. So I have to tell myself quality matters when that many people are watching you. So, yeah.
how much have you spent on equipment? Have you put a fortune in?
No, I'll tell you what, people ask me, "Oh, your videos are so nice. What do you record with?" It's like,
This the simple. Is it an iPhone or a?
it's my iPhone and
There you
it's
go.
just, it's 60 frames per second, 4K.
And
Can't beat it.
you have the little holder, whatever you call that thing, and you go do it, right?
I also have a GoPro, and the
Okay.
bad thing about a GoPro is I do have the selfie stick with a GoPro, but the
Selfie
bad thing
stick. That's
about that is the darn thing will seize up on you, and you're like 2 minutes into your 4 minute dialogue, and
oh, jeez.
the thing froze up on me because it got hot. So
Oh, jeez.
no, I don't spend a lot of money on it.
You know, I asked it, I think last time we got together, maybe over a year ago, I asked this question. Have you gone to a location and you found out they just did not want you around? You know, they
Yes.
said, what are you trying to do here? This is private property.
Okay,
You
so
can't be here.
it just happened to me. The Marie
Really?
McDonald thing. So
Oh, really? Wow.
yeah, so I didn't enter the guy's property. Basically, the only thing left from Marie McDonald are the two white pillars that are outside of her driveway. So the fence, the gate have changed, but the two concrete white pillars made out of brick are still there. The house that the so-called kidnapping happened at, it may have been replaced because it doesn't look the same. And when I arrived there, there was a lot of construction work going on. So it was either torn down or rebuilt in the same footprint, or it was being remodeled on the outside. There was a lot of activity going on. And when I pull up, I see this car there, and I thought, oh crap, I don't want to be here filming outside when somebody's sitting in the car. So I get out. Does a U-turn. He goes down the road, and he parks a ways away as if he's spying on me. And I thought, oh, this can't be good. So I get out my GoPro and I'm talking. I'm a little bit nervous because I'm right there on the road. Cars are passing by. And he starts walking up to me. He says, why are you videotaping my property? I said, well, I'm here. This is a Mary McDonald house. You know that, right? Yeah, I know that. He was very short with me. And I said, oh, here, let me show you my card. I'll show you what I do. I talk about history and I'm doing a little video here about what happened here. And he said, well, you can't be doing that. I said, well, actually, I can be doing it. It's legal to photograph any house from the street.
Mhm.
I did not enter your property one time, you know? And so after I think he realized it was a losing battle, but then he walks off with a huff, didn't say, I'm sorry, that's pretty cool that you're doing this. He was pissed. He didn't say anything. He just walked off. And I thought,
Mhm.
oh, he's probably calling the cops and I'll have to get hassled by them. But yeah, something like that happened with the Crazy Larry, uh, Dirty Mary Crazy Larry video location that I did. If
Mhm.
you watch the beginning of that movie, there's a motel that a car pulls up to. It's actually, I found out it's on private property. So I'm out there filming, and this lady comes out and she goes, well, what's this all about? And I said, oh, well, I'm doing a YouTube video shooting that house right there because it was in the movie. Well, you can't do that. This is private property. And I said, it looks like a public road to me. She
As
goes,
long
well,
as,
it's not. It's a private road. And I went, oh, crap. So
oh,
I probably spent 20 minutes trying to convince her I wasn't going to expose her little secret as to where this place was, and
right.
actually showed her that I was legit, and that was the end of it. But oh, let me something the issue came up. I don't know if you even saw it because I had to pull the video, but
Mhm.
went to the Brady Bunch house
Oh, yeah. I
when I was
saw
in
that.
Los Angeles, and I
Mhm.
had to pull it. The owner,
Really?
first of all, my friend arranged for us to go in there. He said, can my friend who has a YouTube channel come along? So not only did I come along, but three other people came along. So
Yeah.
we did this video. I published it. So she even let me interview her. I said, can you talk to me on camera about the house? So we're sitting side by side and I'm videotaping her. She's got some great dialogue. And I thought, yeah, this is great. I'm going to put this in. Well, apparently she didn't like the fact that people were criticizing how she looked. That they said she sounded obnoxious. You know how people are. They're just really,
Mhm.
I mean, it's
Just looking
just,
for something.
oh my gosh, it was just critical to no end on it. So uh, she just kept harassing us. Pull it down, pull it down. I also did make a mistake. I showed her license plate and didn't blur it out a second time, so she got ticked off. So you know what I did? I'm gonna re-upload it edited at her completely out of the picture. So you're not even going to see her. You're not going to hear her. You're not going to see her car. You're not going to see her license plate. But yeah, that the first week that video got 104,000 views, and I thought,
The
oh, I
Brady Bunch, no,
don't want to put
The Brady Bunch is so popular.
it is.
That stupid, I hate to say stupid show, but that show back in 1970, whenever the heck it was, to this day, for whatever reason, it's the most popular thing going.
Yeah.
Again, I watched it before it got pulled. I watched the whole thing, and I didn't see anything, but I can see why people get very, some people are so welcoming,
Well,
but some
uh,
people aren't.
okay, but you know what? She agreed to be interviewed. She knew what I was
Right,
going to do with it,
right.
and then she
Then she
pulls
changed her mind.
does a 180 on me, and I was like,
Yeah,
whatever. She must be
I know.
whatever. But the funny thing is that the couple that I interviewed at the end, you might remember, they also went on the tour. They were like 10 years younger than me. So
Right.
they were watching the reruns. And to them, it was just as real to them being a part of the Brady Bunch experience as it was for me because I was watching it when it was live. So, I mean, I'm 60. I'll be 64 this year.
Hmm.
So when it first came out, I think I was 9 years old or something like that.
Yeah,
So
1969,
yeah.
8, something like that.
And I
Seven.
had a crush like every other guy, a crush on
Which one?
Marsha.
Which one did you go for?
Oh, Marsha.
Marsha, Marsha, Marsha.
Yeah, the blonde hair, long legs. Oh yeah.
Jan. Well, Jan was the enigma. She was the strange one, and
Yeah.
the other one was a pain in the neck. What was her name again?
Cindy.
Cindy. Cindy.
Well, she was too young too.
Yeah, right. But I'm just saying, she was the one that was always on everybody's nerves. But
Right.
the show itself is iconic and it lives on. And the
Right.
Robert Reed
Yeah.
is gone, Florence Henderson gone,
Yeah.
Ann B. Davis gone. But I think all the kids are still around.
They are. And if hopefully people will get to watch the video, but I was reflecting while I was standing in the parents' bedroom, the iconic bedroom that we always saw them in, about how short it seems that I was just a kid when I was watching that show. I was growing up with them,
Yeah.
and both parents are gone today, and my mother is gone today. And I just reflected on the brevity of life, thinking, "Oh my gosh, life is really incredibly short." When you're 20 years old, you think, "I got a lifetime to live," but next thing you know, you're 60 and 70 and 80, and
Uh-huh.
it's crazy.
Comes way too fast. I'll be
Yeah,
65 in September. I know what you're saying.
yeah.
Oh boy. And the one you just mentioned, your mother. The one with your mother was great. Talk about that one for a minute.
So which one? Because I
There
did
was
two.
one with your mother. With your mother,
I took her.
you had old photos of your
Yeah,
mother.
yeah, yeah. So, um, I did two videos. I took her to Graceland. It was something that I'd always wanted to do, and I felt this nudging in 2018 or 2019. I need to take my mom to Graceland. It was fall time. It was September, October. Um, so she loved the experience. She was starting to fail at that point. She had a walker, so she moved very slowly, and she was starting to lose her mind a little bit. Was totally in love with Elvis. So I'm glad I took her because you know what happened the following March, right? March of 2020, entire country shuts down because of COVID.
Right, right. COVID.
Uh, she was in a rest home facility, and I couldn't even go see her. I
Same thing
remember
happened here. Same
I would
exact thing
take
happened
I would
here.
take her to lunch, and so I showed up for lunch, and they said, "Well, you can't take her out." And I said, "Why not?" "Well, COVID. If you take her out, you're not going to bring her back." I said, "Okay," because at that time they said 2 weeks. I said, "Mom, it'll just be 2 weeks." Well, didn't turn out that way. She actually died in that place. I think she died of a broken heart because nobody could come and see her. I couldn't go see her. She died on Halloween Day in 2020, and I couldn't even have a funeral for her.
Hmm.
So for me, the video tribute was my way of saying goodbye to her and honoring her memory. Um, and I was up here in this room editing my video, and Sarah walked in. And she saw that I was sobbing. She said, "What's wrong?" I said, "It's this video." It was just my way of mourning.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I
Well,
tried to do it right, tell her story. I think
you did a
all
wonderful job
we
because it
could
really touched me.
we could all say that we love our mother, but I talk about the so-called warts. She wasn't perfect, and she was difficult, especially towards the end. Just she didn't want to be where she was at, and it's difficult. And I'm starting to see little glimpses of what it's like to, because I'm going to start preparing for, losing teeth. We're talking about
Jeez.
losing
You have a good dentist.
hair.
He'll take care of you. Do you exercise?
Yeah, yeah, I try to.
So you're working out. You're eating well?
Why are you asking that?
Because you just said how old you're getting.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I probably,
64 is the new 44.
yeah, I do run, but I find that when I run, I have this incredible aching in my joints. Is like this didn't happen in my 50s. And so
Yeah.
you remember how it was growing up, and the old people would say, they start sharing about their aches and pains,
Oh yeah.
and you're like, what's your
Yeah.
problem,
Yeah, I
And
know.
now I'm starting to see what it was all about.
No, no, you're so right. And you know what's funny about I talked to my Cindy about this. Back then, you know how everybody has a water bottle everywhere they go. The
Right.
water is so. We used to go out, Jeff, play in the hot sun for hours on end, no water anywhere to be found. We'd come home and just douse ourselves. We were so thirsty, but everything was so much simpler, so different.
Yeah.
It just was such a different era, and it wasn't that long ago in the long run. I mean, if you think about it, 40 years, 50 years isn't eons ago,
Right.
but we've changed so drastically, I feel.
Well, I grew up in the country, and the nearest store was like 3 miles down the road. And on the
Hmm.
weekend, we'd all get on our bicycles. It's kind of like the Stand By Me video where
Yeah.
kids taking off being kids, and we'd take off down the road and cross the busy highway. And you think about that today. I mean, a lot of parents won't even let their kids out of the backyard.
I know. For good
And
reason, though, if you see what goes on,
yeah,
sometimes you can't blame them.
it's
But
sad. Yeah, it's
what
sad.
part of California did you grow up?
I grew up in Stanislaus County. It's a county in the middle of the valley. It's perfectly located. We are 90 miles due east of San Francisco. We're about 90 miles this way is Yosemite. In fact, on a clear day, I can see Half Dome. And then you got another hour and a half this way to the north in Sacramento, another hour and a half to the south in Fresno. So we're like located in a really great spot. Now, this is farm country, so it's still relatively rural. But I mean, if you want to get away, the ocean's like 2 hours away. You want to
Mm.
get up to the mountains a lot quicker. So it's a great place. The valley itself isn't all that exciting. It's hundreds of miles long. In fact, I was going to tell you that when we drove from Kingman, Arizona on Sunday home, I left there at 10:30 in the morning and I got home at 7:30 at night, basically driving straight through. And I tell you what, I'm not cut out for driving that long. It was 540 miles. So, I don't,
It's a long
yeah,
way.
California is a huge state. A lot of
It
people don't
is
realize how it is.
very big.
Yeah.
When you were a kid, were you fascinated by the same thing? I mean,
Oh yeah.
were you always celebrity driven?
Oh yeah. 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 I started collecting autographs when I was about 10 years old. Um, the White House had written to my grandfather, the grandfather I never knew, and it was written from President Roosevelt's secretary to him. And I would ask my grandmother, "Can I see that letter again?" So she'd pull it out, and I thought, "Oh wow, that'd be cool to have a real letter signed by Franklin Roosevelt." Well, now I got like 10 of them, right? But I've always been fascinated by celebrities, and so I think autograph collecting kind of dovetails with that. So whenever I've had opportunities to meet famous people, I've done that. Michael Landon, Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter, just whoever came around. But I got to interview Shirley Jones, the actress, at her
Oh yeah.
home in Van Nuys. Um, Another actress by the name of Terry Moore, who was actually married to Howard Hughes. And I would love to interview more people, more celebrities. I think I could do a good job. They just I don't know how to get in touch with them. So,
It's difficult. Some are willing, some
yeah.
are kind of reclusive, depending on who
Well,
you're getting.
some of the people who did talk to me at the Hollywood show wanted to be paid. And so I thought, oh,
I saw that
okay,
video. I noticed that. Yes.
okay, I'll pay you. I mean, I'd rather not have an autograph. I'd rather have some FaceTime with you. Maybe people would appreciate a word. Now, Bruce Dern, you probably remembered I walked up to him and I said, "You were in a John Wayne movie, weren't you?" He goes, "I killed him." I said,
Yeah, you
"What?"
did.
He said, "I killed him." So I
Yeah.
went back and watched the Cowboys. I was like, "That's a brutal scene. No
Yeah, it
wonder
was
he got
very
hate mail.
violent.
He killed John Wayne."
Yeah, very violent. And that's what he was known for a long time. I remember Bruce as he was a big distance runner. I met him one time at the SAG office in New York City in Manhattan
Okay.
here. And a very strange, quirky guy, but very nice guy.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
nice guy. The guy that I interviewed before he passed away many years ago was Andy Griffith. And he was very difficult, I remember, as
Yeah.
opposed to these other people that were very, I guess to tell the whole story of one's life is kind of like one person feels as though you're prying, the other feels as though you're very interested and you want to know for good reasons. You have no bad intentions, depending on how the person looks at you. You always, I don't know. Do you see your channel turning in a different direction, maybe interview driven, more so than than what you're doing right now? Do you see that
I don't
happening?
know. Right now, I've got so many limitations. I'm like, I think I have 2 years left before I retire from my day job.
Mm,
And so I have to figure out kind of what direction I'm going to go with it. But at least I'll be able to produce more videos. There's a lot of travel that's required. I know there's a lot of people who build up YouTube channels just by sitting in their basement, so to speak, and digging up pictures and coming up with the dialogue and never leave the place. And I don't respect videos like that. I think they'll even run pictures that don't even go with what they're talking about, you
yeah,
know.
I've seen that.
But it's funny. You mentioned something. Stephanie Powers was
Oh yeah,
also at the Hollywood show,
nice person.
and I waited a good half hour to get her autograph. I thought she was friendly until, she saw that I had my camera there. I was baiting her into talking about Bing Crosby because I saw a still of her and Bing Crosby. And then I thought I was going to get away with it. And then she says, "You should be doing that." I said, "What?" "Videotaping me. So I want you to delete that off your phone." So I'm like, oh, crap. You're at a Hollywood show. You're supposed to be talking to people.
All
What's
right,
the big deal? So she actually watched me. She wanted to see me delete it off her phone, off my phone. Well, she didn't realize it's still saved in the delete file.
sure.
So
I
I got
think
away with it, I hope.
you got away with it. I think sometimes I remember Heart to Heart with
Yeah,
I think sometimes they think you're going to make money from them, and you're going to use that, you're going to exploit that video, that photo, whatever it is, and somehow make a bundle off of them somehow, some way. Yeah, I can see that with her
well,
because
I can tell you,
she seemed a little standoffish. And just think about how many people there are out there with channels with all different topics of every variety you can. They have specialized channels for every little niche subject you could ever think of.
right.
I can't get over the things that go so well. People are so interested in certain things. I say, this is so mundane, so silly. Why are people so? But you never know what people are going to go for, Jeff. I'm yet to figure it out. I can't figure it out.
We have a lady here in our hometown who we kind of know through an acquaintance of family members. She just talks about life with her kids, and she's got over 1 million subscribers. And
Wow.
I watch her stuff, and I go, "Are you kidding? Why do people want to watch this?"
Well, Jeff, I appreciate you being with me. It was great fun. We have to do it again, maybe in a few months. What do you think?
I think we can. I got this Zoom thing figured out. Again, this is my first Zoom, so
I'm really honored by that because, hey, this is the first time face to face. Because the last time we had you on the phone, I had a little bad connection. It was good.
yeah.
It was good. I'll send you this, and we can we'll have the people look at it, and it'll be great.
Well, I appreciate your interest. I mean, I was impressed that somebody in New York City would be a big fan of this channel,
You
and
have to
I'm
come to
really
the East Coast one day,
humbled
have
by it.
dinner with
Yeah.
my wife and I. Bring
Oh,
Sarah.
awesome.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take it easy.
All right.